You could have your story. I have my story, right? I own it. I own my bias as a married, cis heterosexual dating and relationship coach for women. I own it. So I'm just asking you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, if you were given two choices, would you rather be single for the rest of your life, or would you rather have someone who loves you and takes care of you? And if you would rather have someone who loves you and takes care of you, what are you doing to achieve that? Hey, this is Marc, Katz, dating coach for smart, strong, successful women, your personal trainer for love. Thanks for joining me here on the Love You podcast. We got a really excellent episode, thought-provoking. Usually I have a couple sentences and I wing it. I wrote this entire thing out because I had a lot to say and I wanted to get my words right. So if I do a little more reading today, please forgive me. If you are a fan of the Love You podcast, do me a small favor. Give us a positive review on Apple. Give us a positive review on Spotify. Give us 5 stars. I got to tell you, something came in earlier just now. I got to share it with you. Nothing I was planning on doing, but I just read it a minute ago and it made me laugh. So I'm going to read this out loud. This is a review I just got. I find Evan a bit like my yearly mammogram and colonoscopy. They aren't always comfortable, but the results are important and often differ from what I see in self-exams. Evan's made me look at my own self-image biases and both positive and negative personality traits in a new way. His advice for me has been priceless and helped me in more than just my dating life. You have to know yourself and your worth, and he does a tremendous job of enabling you to do that first before jumping into the dating pool again. Also, the other women I met in his Love You coaching group have been amazing, insightful, and are becoming wonderful friends. And finding someone with a similar story to connect with is good for my soul. At times, I've wanted to punch Evan in the face for his candor, which is why I enjoyed his new podcast. As a coach, Evan will often look at things in a couple different ways and even admit that he might be wrong occasionally. I don't know of any other coaches who would make that the title of a podcast and admit it publicly. Things like this make me appreciate Evan, and it shows the vulnerability that he teaches us we need to share. And that is a real review of the Love You podcast that was left. And that's why I do this, is that we can get reactions like that. So today's episode is about, should you be happy being alone? And there's a few schools of thought on this one. And I know that however you feel, if I say something that you disagree with, it feels like fighting words. It feels like judgment. Understand, everything I'm doing is just holding up something to the light and looking at it through different prisms to consider different arguments about the virtues of being alone versus being coupled up. So to preface, if you're completely happy being alone, I am happy for you. I'm genuinely happy for you. I'd be surprised if you're listening to this podcast sincerely, but if you're happy being alone, I don't judge you in the least. There are many ways to live on this planet Earth. And there's no shortage of people who live rich, full, fulfilling lives on their own, never get married, and are perfectly happy. And we have studies that share this. And so there's nothing, there's not one way to live. And I don't want to just come across as the smug married guy who says you have to do what he does. That is not the angle that I'm going for. At the same time, there is a selection bias. If you are listening to the Love You podcast, there's probably something inside of you that says, I would like to have love. Few people reach out to dating and relationship coaches just to tell me how happy you are being alone. And so today I want to talk about the tension between those two things, between building a life that you're proud of alone and deeply wishing and longing for connection and partnership and companionship on the other hand. And there is a tension between the two things. When I interview people, and I do, you can't just go to evanmarckatz.com and sign up for Love You. It's by application only, because we want great clients. We want people who are bought in. We want high achieving women who are aligned with the mission here. So there's a bit of a screening process. And part of that screening process is that I get on the phone with everybody for an hour before you can join Love You. And so one of the questions I ask, to be very transparent, is what does it feel like to be single? And how would it feel to be single for the rest of your life? Last episode, we talked about feelings. And we talked about men feeling accepted, appreciated, and admired, and women feeling safe, heard, and understood. And so I find a lot of women that I work with are very good at compartmentalizing their feelings. And I say this more as an observation than as a judgment. Compartmentalization is what allows us to survive in a very cruel and indifferent universe. Right? But I talk to a lot of women when I ask, how does it feel right now to be 55 and single? What are the adjectives you would use to describe that? They often get really tongue-tied. They don't know what to say. I don't know. I mean, I'm good. I feel pretty happy. I like my friends. I like my job. I like traveling. I've got an amazing dog, close with my nieces. And none of these things are lies. Like, they're not just saying this to put a gloss on their life. At the same time, I also know intellectually that there is an underlying something that roils them, that allows them to listen to the Love You podcast, or get on my mailing list, or follow me on Instagram, or listen to the YouTube videos, or join my Substack. Like, it's not just intellectual curiosity. So there has to be an emotional component of it. So the people who are more in touch with their emotions usually say something like, and again, I'm not putting words in their mouth, these are the most routine responses to the smart, strong, successful, high-achieving, amazing superstar women who get on the phone with me. I feel sad. I feel lonely. I feel disconnected. I feel frustrated. I feel confused. Why me? Why is this so hard for me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with men? What's wrong with my city? Why do other people get to have a partner who loves them unconditionally while I feel forced to just double down on work and wander the earth alone? Now, these feelings don't say anything about who they are. This is, again, there's not a judgmental statement being made right now. All of these women have friends and family and meaningful work and hobbies and interests that fill them up. And that's what you do when you're single. You fill up your life with stuff that you love, because that's the thing that you can control. Right? But if you just scratch an inch deep below that surface, lonely, sad, frustrated, confused. I don't know if that resonates with you, but I wanted to share that with you. So when I talk to women who swear they're happy, and, I'd be fine, I always have to, dig a little bit deeper. So you reached out to a dating coach today. You're telling me that, if by the time you're 80, you never fell in love again, you'd be fine. And that's usually where they sort of stop. Because in a given day, in a given week, in a given month, well, yeah, they're fine, right? This is their normal. This is your normal, is being alone. I don't talk to married women. They're not my clients. All my clients are single women. So obviously I'm not judging single women, right? But they're really contemplating the future. Today, I'm fine. Today, I'm happy. Today, I've never been in a better place. I've never been more healed, never more over my ex and my childhood trauma, never been in a more financially secure position. So it's the both and solution. So we need to reach the point where we are both really happy with ourselves and the lives that we've created, and longing for more, because only the longing for more is going to inspire you to take action. If you're fine with the status quo, there's no impetus to change. If you're perfectly content being alone, great. But you're not gonna hire a dating coach to change your life, because your contentment, right? It's like me. I'm content being a guy with a pretty good metabolism and a pretty decent physique for a 51-year-old guy who doesn't really diet and doesn't really work out. Now, if I were more motivated by health challenges, or my doctor said something to me, or I was embarrassed to take my shirt off, then I would have the impetus to diet and work out more. But the status quo for me is fine. I could go the rest of my life without looking any better than I do today and be okay. People need to feel pain, some measure of pain, in order to change anything. People need to feel pain. Your job has to suck for you to leave your job, and so on and so forth. The life that's available to you right now is the one where you don't have a guy in it, and you do have to make a level of peace with what if it's never going to happen. Right? I don't want to wake up feeling miserable or bad about myself every day. And again, I think that is a good impulse. I'm not second guessing that impulse. But The trap is when you end up doubling down on that. When that thing that feels like a sort of a temporary state between relationships becomes a permanent state. And again, if you want that permanent state, that's okay. But the next thing you know, you just do your best to keep really busy. And as long as you're really busy, as long as you're working 50 hours a week, as long as you have trips planned all the time, as long as your social calendar is filled with friends and family and book club and yoga retreats and business conferences and stuff, as long as you don't look down, life is good. But it's also like the Wile E. Coyote thing. I'm dating myself, where he's fine until he looks down and then he falls off the cliff. All right. When I get on the phone with my clients, I ask them to look down. If you went the rest of your life without a partner, without a witness, without anyone to share your joy, to share the sorrows, to be the emergency contact form, to listen to you after a hard day, to support you emotionally, to support you financially, right? To just ease the burden of life so you don't have to do everything yourself, all the plans, all the medical stuff, all the chores around the house. It's tiring. So I always ask women, is anybody taking care of you? You take care of your kids, you take care of your elderly mom, you take care of your clients. Who is taking care of you? And a lot of them, that's when the tears start, because no one is taking care of them. And that's got to be difficult. And I that's not meant to be smug married mansplaining. That is completely sincere. I do not know what I would do without my wife. Maybe she'd be fine without me, but I don't know what I'd do without my wife. It's very important to have someone in my life who's thinking of me, who's taking care of me, not just from a distance, but in my life on a day-to-day basis, my go-to person. And that's where we get into the statistics around this that show that happily married people are the happiest people of all. And again, people cherry pick their studies to say what they want to say. And, you know, there's studies that say men are happy in marriage, but women are not happy in marriage. Let's look at it from a different angle. The people who describe themselves as happily married people are the happiest people. Right? So no, marriage is not a panacea. Being in a relationship doesn't guarantee it, on and on and on. But the people who figured it out, who could look in the mirror and look at their spouses and say, we're happily married, they're at the top of the heap. And so then you're left with a choice to stay exactly where you are, which is right here. Well, I'd rather be single and really busy and alone than to be in a shitty relationship with a guy, but I'm not offering you a shitty relationship. I'm trying to offer you a better relationship, something that is additive. A bad relationship drains your energy. A good relationship gives you more energy. It allows you to be yourself. It allows you to feel secure. It allows you to fly. It allows you to accomplish more and have a shared vision, because two people can do a lot more than one person. It's like building a business. There's only so far you could take life on your own. And so I ask you, are you content being alone for the rest of your life? Right? Most of the women who reach out to me, who go to my website and apply to love you, right, would love to have a partner to take home to their family holiday for Christmas, would love to have someone to kiss on New Year's, would love to have someone throw them a surprise birthday bash, would love to have someone who by default makes them coffee and breakfast on a Sunday morning just because he knows what she likes. Like, who wouldn't want that? If I could just give that to you, who wouldn't want all of those things? So if you search in your soul, I wouldn't be surprised if you can, A, be content being single, and B, intellectually recognize that having someone who loves you and takes care of you and makes you laugh and turns you on and splits the chores and the bills and brings interesting ideas to your life and has stuff of his own that he brings to the table, that it is additive rather than something that drains from you. So going back to the feeling piece of it, it makes me wonder, why does everybody work so hard to deny that they want love? Why is it a badge of honor to say, no, I'm fine on my own? So that brings me to another feelings question. And this is something that comes out on those Love You Breakthrough calls. I asked, how will having a partner make you feel? When it all works out, how will it make you feel? 1/3 of the women, this is not measured, but this is observational data. 1/3 of the women say complete. And then all of the women who say complete cover their mouth, take it back. I mean, I don't mean complete. It's what they said. I don't mean complete. I mean, I know I'm complete without it. My therapist told me I'm complete without it. I don't need a man. So that's the story, right, that has been deeply ingrained in us. I don't want to admit that I feel incomplete without a partner. And I'm not telling you that you have to. Right? Again, if you disagree with me, you're not wrong. I will say this. I think it's pretty obvious from what I do for a living and how I talk about my wife. If my wife left me or if my wife were to prematurely pass away, I would feel incomplete. And that is not a sign of weakness. That's not something I'm embarrassed about. So if I, who've built up a life, and by the way, of course I would feel incomplete. I've been with my wife for 17 years, married for 15. Why would I feel complete without her? We've built something that's so much bigger, where we're so deeply intertwined in each other's lives. Just this morning, there was an Atlantic article about the word codependency, and it's got this negative connotation, codependent, right? Of course I'm codependent on my wife, right? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. We are so deeply enmeshed in each other's lives and families and business goings on and parenting and money and travel. And how do you extricate one person from that and still feel complete? To me, to love like this is the meaning of life. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. It's going to be scary if one of us goes before the other one goes. But would I be better off being alone for the rest of my life because I'm afraid of losing my wife? No, I'm going to cherish every second I have with my wife. I feel like I'm the luckiest guy. And so I asked the question, right? Why have we absorbed all these lessons from pop culture that say the most important thing in the world is independence rather than codependence? We're human beings. We are interdependent upon each other, right? We don't all want to be an island. It's part of the problem these days. If you read all the studies about social media and isolation and friendship and loneliness, you have people, myself included, spending 5-6 hours a day reading on their phone, right? Who don't necessarily have good friends, right? Because friends are not built into our lives. We don't, live in small towns anymore. We don't work in offices anymore. Friends pair off and they get really busy. We have our digital worlds. We have things that are planned out for us. So there's just a lot less sense of community. So the sense of community that you have the most control of is the one that you build at home. It's the one that you create yourself. It starts with 2 people. Now, again, that's not for everybody. I'm not saying marriage is for everybody. If you're here, you're probably relationship curious at the very least. I'm not trying to convince you, right, that relationships are the only way to live. I'm just validating that there's nothing wrong with saying, yes, I could do the best I can to be happy alone, but I do feel like something is missing. And if you don't admit it to yourself, because that's the posture you give to the world, I love being single. Defiantly love being single. If that's the impression you give to your world, at a certain point, you're going to believe that. And the next thing you know, the 30-year-old defiant person becomes 40 and she doesn't have children, right? Or the 50-year-old who is really happy after her divorce because she doesn't have to be with her shitty ex-husband anymore, embraces that, thinks every man is going to be like her ex-husband. No, I never want to get married again. Right, because you married one bad guy when you were 25. You've given up on the institution entirely. You've given up on the possibility of anybody else making you happy. Right. These are the stories we tell ourselves, and they're more emotional than rational. And so, I don't know, to me, acknowledging your emotions, acknowledging that we have needs, acknowledging that we are interconnected is not a sign of weakness at all. It's a sign of self-awareness. It's a sign of strength. Our strength is other people. I wouldn't do well on Survivor Island. I would not do well. I really am an extrovert who comes alive around people, even though I spend 10 hours a day in an office by myself, right? Not everybody's wired that way. So again, I'm not trying to convince you, even though if it sounds like I am. I know you could have a ton of satisfaction in being single. I was single for 35 years, right? But most of the time I was single, right, I was looking for someone to spend time with. I was looking for someone to hang out with on weekends. I was looking for someone to sleep with. And ultimately, I was looking for someone to love and build a life with, including a family. If you look and imagine, you close your eyes, what's your dream? Is your dream indeed traveling to the Greek Isles by yourself? Is your dream going to sleep in your bed by yourself every day for the rest of your life? If so, don't listen to me. That's great. Right? But if it's not, and you're not currently living your dream, ask yourself, why do you insist? Why do you insist? And for most people, it's fear. It's fear of making a bad decision in love. So we convince ourselves we'd rather be alone because I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get my heart broken. I don't want to get divorced again. So we basically stay in stasis. We avoid dating. We avoid opening our hearts because the whole thing is too scary. The safest thing is to be alone. It's just not the most rewarding thing. And I think you know that. And so you could have your story. I have my story, right? I own it. I own my bias as a married, cis heterosexual dating and relationship coach for women. I own it. So I'm just asking you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, if you were given two choices, would you rather be single for the rest of your life? Or would you rather have someone who loves you and takes care of you? And if you would rather have someone who loves you and takes care of you, what are you doing to achieve that? My name is Marc Katz. I am a dating coach for high-achieving women who have everything but the guy. If this has touched you in any meaningful way, please go to Spotify and Apple. Give us a positive review. Say something nice. Subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, etc. And if you are serious about finding love and you've been going to therapy and looking in the mirror and trying different things and nothing's actually worked and you want someone to hold your hand so that you could actually not just be listening to podcasts, but you could actually have a relationship and no longer listen to podcasts anymore, that would make both of us very, very happy. Go to evanmarckatz.com/apply. Put in your name, put in your email address, watch my video on how to fix your broken man picker, fill out a short application for Love You. We'll talk on the phone. I already told you what we're going to talk about, and we'll figure out if you're a good fit for the program. I thank you. I appreciate you. I look forward to our next conversation next week. Take care. Bye-bye.